Hey, Mark made it to Rattlesnake, I see.
Yeah, since you won't go up there with me.
Hey, bring the snowcat. I'm ready. Greg was just making it up there. He spent several hours shoveling the last little bit out and finally made it up there right before this snow hit.
This was quite the storm too.
Yeah, it's gonna. I was looking at the Horsetooth camera, and it's gonna be a while. Yeah, the good news is that this is melting really fast, so
Is it ever?
it won't be terrible, but it's gonna be a little bit longer before we get up in the hills again.
Well, it's 9 o'clock, so I guess we'll go ahead and start. One thing I didn't see, Steve, you didn't send out that note.
I sent that out yesterday.
I did not see it. Did anyone else see it?
No.
I saw something from him on minutes and
In the newsletter.
the newsletter. I did not get a chance to post that yet. I apologize for that.
Okay.
But I will try to get that on here in just the next few minutes while we're talking.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions or comments on those things? Anybody read it?
Probably not if it hasn't been posted.
Hey, Joe.
Yes.
How's my audio?
Sounds good, Greg.
All right, thanks.
The financial report was on that too, I think, wasn't it, Darren? You're muted, Darren.
Sorry. Yeah, I got the financial report posted a few days ago.
You want to kind of give a brief overview just because?
I can do that. Let me pull it up here local. We have about 17,000 in the bank total. The biggest drop there was about $2,000 for the 115 repeater replacement. And we've got a couple of charges coming up for new antennas for platform that will be going in when we do the building move, which I'm sure James will comment on here in a few minutes. And we picked up 8 new members to bring us up to a total of 215, which is a little behind last year's number at this time, which was 225. We're tracking real close and I'm happy with the numbers.
Yeah, I think that's really good considering everything that's happened. Our Red Feather project, if you'll notice behind, if you've never seen this thing before, this is what we're looking at. This is on Dead Man's, what is it, Mountain Hill, whatever. Jim, where are you at? You know what it is. And it is owned by the Forest Service / county, we think. And with this, I'll turn this over to James because James is doing most of the work on it.
Joe, if I could comment one quick moment here. We're getting some noise in the background. It's kind of a chirping, so I'm going to mute everybody for now. And if you want to talk, unmute yourself.
Darren, whenever you mute everyone, they don't have the ability to unmute themselves. Best thing to do is they raise it.
Sorry, I just unmuted. There's actually a checkbox that I have that allows me to give you the permission to unmute yourself. Can you try doing that, Jim? Okay, I unmuted you.
Yeah, we've dealt with that quite a bit in the past on other Zoom meetings. It's a pain.
So if everyone would just mute themselves and use push to talk on the space.
Okay, actually, I just had a checkbox that says allow participants to unmute. So I think we're in good shape now.
Okay.
So if you can just mute yourselves when you're done speaking, that'd be great. Thank you.
James, can you hear me?
Yes, and I can now unmute myself, so thank you. Okay, so we started talking about this a little bit when we were still in person. I think at the time we were talking about the potential of a repeater site at Kilpecker Mountain, which is the state DTRS site, and we've up and down and all around we've run into problems and who knows what. So it was actually, I think, Jim KE6ETE that, no, I'm sorry, it was Jeff Ford that suggested, what about the old fire tower that's very near there, up there on the above Red Feather. It's at the top of Dead Man. That's what the picture is of over Joe's shoulder right now. And so we're working with them on the possibility of getting the repeater that we were talking about putting at Kilpecker on that tower. The coverage maps are within tenths of a percent of the same coverage between the two sites. It's because that site is not accessible probably until July. We don't exactly know what's there. We know there's a very large solar array there. There's other radios there. The talking with the county, it's promising that we'll be able to get there. We don't have to fight with anybody else to get there, and there's no there's no conflict with it being a state radio site or anything like that. So that's in the works. More to come on that. The original, as of right now, the talk is to put an analog UHF and a UHF DMR there, potentially, possibly a WinLink node. And for those of you that haven't seen or heard about the Kilpecker project, the coverage of these repeaters at this location would be incredible. Basically, the entire Rewa wilderness area is covered. All of Red Feather, Crystal Mountain, all of that stuff. I'm sorry, not Crystal Mountain, Crystal Lakes, all those subdivisions up there. And then this repeater actually has handheld coverage all the way to about 20 miles north of Laramie. So it's got, and it'll actually reach all the way out to the Cheyenne Ridge to the east. So halfway to the state line to the east. It's got really great coverage for the Red Feather area, which was one of the main goals of the project. And then the other would be all those 4-wheel trails that are very popular above the Poudre Canyon and in the Rewas up there. It also gives us an additional chance to potentially finish linking with microwave the Colorado connection site in the Steamboat, so that there's a redundant loop of the backbone, the digital backbone, all the way through to Steamboat. So nothing has been purchased for this yet. We're still working on permission, but it's looking pretty promising. And if all is well, and the club agrees that this is a good way to move forward, the hope is to have this approved and on air this summer. So, Joe, did I miss anything? Does that wrap that up pretty well?
No, thank you for that. This is something that James and I and Mike Pullman have been working on for, a year now, at least, I think.
Yeah, the Kilpecker project started at least a year ago. And, this is, we have quite a few club members in these areas. So not only is it a public service for those that recreate in this area, but we've got, life and safety type need for this too. Red Feather is, Estes Park has certainly got its challenges with a single fiber path up the canyon that disconnects everything in all when the canyon has a problem. But Red Feather's not a lot different. Red Feather does not have a massive commercial infrastructure in and out of it, and it could be easily made into a little bit of an island, and they're very challenged at reaching any of our front range repeaters as is. So there's some good value in adding coverage. There is nothing else that covers that area back there, and I mean not even cell phones, nothing. It's a RF dead zone up there.
We had 2 fires up there almost a month apart this last summer, and we got lucky. Okay, we flat out got lucky and was able to reach those people. But as I told the county, I said, we're just lucky. If you would have put him anywhere else but where he was at, that would have happened. Well, and I think they listened to me. We were talking to both the EOC and the assistant EOC up there, person, EC, sorry. But I think it's well worth trying, and we're still pushing. But the county has got other problems right now, so they're not. But James is putting together a little file, a little report to give to them, and hopefully, like I said, this summer maybe we can get up there. And we're kind of going to do it kind of in a kind of a, well, okay, we're going to do this, so we're going to go up there and see what we need, and then build it down here, and then just kind of install it. And what's nice is we don't have to climb a tower; we just need to go up the stairs on this guy. So it's fairly simple. Any questions about that? Okay. General class updates. Darren, you're on.
Not sure what you're looking for there, but we've had general class that started in person, and then the virus hit, so we took a week or two off and then moved it online. We've got about 8 or so people, 10 people that are attending, and we should be able to wrap that up the end of the month, and then we'll figure out how we can administer some tests in a safe way. But I think everything's going great. Anne, I know you're online. You're one of the students. How do you think it's going?
I think it's going great. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm really glad we're able to continue. So, super.
All right.
Thanks.
That's about it.
Yeah, I got to give Darren a lot of credit for this, because he set up the original one with the city, and that would have worked really well, except for they shut down. So he took it upon to find another venue, and that's really super. I do appreciate that. So Darren deserves all the credit for this. He's done a great job, and I've actually been in on a couple of them, and it's people are really having a good time with it, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. We do have the option, as you know, the 447-275 is linked to Lee Hill. Well, we're thinking right now about linking our 2-meter to that too. James, would you care to address that situation?
Yeah, we're so currently Rocky Mountain Ham owns the repeater. There is a 2-meter repeater that's coordinated and on the air and linked into our digital backbone up there, right next to the 447-750 that we have permanently linked to the 275. Because the 115 has not only shadowing problems to the southeast, especially southwest, especially southwest Weld County, but the 2-meter band is just a very noisy band. So those repeaters just don't work quite as well. So we're working with Rocky Mountain Ham to figure out a good collaboration on how we can permanently link the 2-meter machine on outside of Boulder there with the 115 to provide the same kind of coverage to Southwest Weld County that we have with the 275-750. And one of the main reasons for doing that, besides just general usage and better coverage, is the 115 is our official resource net repeater for ARES activations. And we have the Carbon Valley EOC sitting down there that can't talk to the 115 because of both the noise and the proximity problem. So that would be a solution to both. And it's really, I think, at the point now where we're just working out the terms of, I don't expect that there's going to be money has to be involved. It's just going to be who gets to take care of what, and iron out the MOU and collaboration pieces of who's doing what. So more to come on that soon, but it's I think we'll have that ironed out soon.
Thanks for that, James. I appreciate that. We talked about this earlier, but I see we have 65 people, and earlier on we only had 55 people. About actually, when we go back into the restaurant and have our meetings and things like that, we're trying to put together a live feed of that. This will be an option for anyone to ask questions at certain times and things like that. It'll be monitored. So if you're interested, send me a note, but we will probably do that when we figure out when we're going to get back into the restaurant. So any comments or questions about anything we've talked about? Okay. I have no, as Darren has mentioned, testing. And for some of you, you're looking for maybe to upgrade or things like that, or looking for a test session. To the best of my knowledge, no one is doing any test sessions right now. There is rumors that we may be able to do it online, but again, they're just rumors at this point. So I don't really have any more information on testing or what we can do from here on out until we can actually do it one-on-one.
Joe, can I make a comment on that?
Absolutely, go right ahead.
So I've been in so those of you that don't know, I'm a team lead for the CSU VE, and I'm also a VE, just a standing VE for ARRL, and I keep in close touch with both of those VECs. Both of those VECs have confirmed that they have no plans to do any kind of remote testing, period. I've also, I just talked to Amanda Alden, K1DDN, who's many of you probably know from the ham radio blog talk show, and she's good friends with Gordon West. And it to the best of our knowledge, the W5YI group that did that one single remote test session is still waiting to hear if that was a success, or we know the test was successful. We're waiting to hear if they were going to allow that to continue. We've heard rumors of people saying, call us and sign up and we'll do the remote test. But to the best of our knowledge, there are still no VECs outside of the Anchorage VEC up in Alaska that are allowed to do the remote session. So I heard a few people on here at the beginning of the meeting say they were signed up. If that test actually happens, I would love to hear who you did it through, how you did it, and how it went, because to the best of my knowledge, there is currently no way of doing that. But again, there's a lot of conflicting information. So I will leave that as a standing request. If anybody is able to successfully do a remote test, please get in touch with me and let us know, or any of the NCRC board, let us know. Greg, do you have any?
Oh, sorry. This is Ann. Check out the most recent ARRL newsletter that just came through. They talk about New England, Spalding County, Georgia, and a couple other places that are trying to do remote testing.
I did see that. I saw that there was imminent trials coming up.
Yeah, and they described to try to do it. So.
Yeah. Well, like I said, so I think a lot of groups are trying or exploring the possibility of it, but beyond the single person that W5YI tested, I have not heard of any. And the Anchorage VEC, apparently, if you look at their webpage, every one of their web pages is filled with giant red block letters saying, we are not accepting new applications for VEs. I'm guessing the whole country hit them after this went down. So, and I will also say that we are dedicated to provide. I'm absolutely lined up and ready to provide an in-person test as soon as we're allowed to do so, and we can do it safely. You know, I think safely is not too much of an issue. We can be responsible adults and get it done once we're allowed. You know, finding a venue that will allow us in will be the next challenge. So, you know, like I said, as of right now, anybody that is actually successful in taking a remote test, we'd love to hear from you. But as far as the local folks, we don't have any plans for anything beyond that. Greg.
Yeah, I'm pretty centrally located near Highway 287 and Highway 392. I have a large outbuilding James is familiar with. I could move the Jeep out of there. It's basically a 2-bay garage, and I could clear it out. It can be heated, although that probably won't be an issue after a couple of days with the weather turning nice again. But it can be heated if necessary, and it's well lit. That could be used as a large open area to do in-person testing. We would need folding table and some chairs, which the club has, but I can make that available anytime for testing.
The problem we have with this, Greg, is that we did some little research. Thanks to Jim. Thank you, Jim, for all this information. Passing a test back and forth to a person, apparently this virus stays on the paper for a while. So we really need to look into this type of thing before we actually obligate ourselves just to stay away from the person, because if we could do it computerized, it'd be a different deal. But as of right now, I don't know if we can do it that way.
Well, you could use sheet protectors. They could fill out their test and put the pages in. Someone with gloves and a mask could put the pages in plastic sheet protectors for grading. And after a few days, you grade it and put it in storage, and after a few days, it'll be safe.
Yeah, and let me be clear. I'm not willing to. I am not willing to nor offering to violate the stay-at-home order. My understanding is that it could be fairly soon that some of those restrictions will relax, and so if we can do it safely within the current restrictions, I'm willing to do that. I am not offering to just go do a test tomorrow, with the order in place. So for those that are there, I know there's kind of a pent up requests for tests, and I'm definitely committed to doing those as soon as we're able to do that in a legal and responsible way.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Okay. We're thinking very seriously about putting on a teleconferencing tech class. We're still going to have the one in October, and we will still do if we have a lot of people and things like that. But I've had a person send me a note that has 10 people that wants to go through a class. Okay. So Darren again came up with this idea that we could use Zoom or some sort of teleconferencing type situation. It probably won't be until May or possibly June, depending on how we get done with this general class. And of course, what our testing would be, we don't know that either. So if you've got someone that's interested in going through this class and we haven't set up any kind of times or we don't even know what it's going to look like, please send me a note at president@ncarc.net and I will get you on that particular list. Okay. Greg,
or if you know of anyone that wants to take that class.
Greg, you want to kind of update us on field day, please?
Sure. As soon as I get unmuted. So field day is still on. We haven't been told we can't do it. There were a couple of large events that were scheduled that same weekend that were going to make the whole area kind of crowded. One of those events was the Airstream International annual Jamboree was going to be there. They have canceled, so they're not going to be there. One other event was a large Christian concert on Saturday. I suspect that that's probably been canceled too. So we'll have plenty of room. By its very nature, there can be social distancing at field day if people spread out a little. We've got 2 acres to play on. I suspect if we need more, it'll be available just because of all the cancellations now that have occurred. So at this point, it's still on, and we will see what, we really have no idea what's going to be happening in June. This could go one of 2 ways. I'm hopeful that with the dry heat and the ultraviolet, this thing's really going to drop off in June or by June. We'll see what happens, and we should have it available as a group site at the end of June. If that doesn't happen, we'll have to fall back to individual operators going out on their own or going in their backyard and doing single operator field days. If it starts heading that way, I imagine we can still use the club call sign for everybody, and they'll just be operating in a dispersed fashion. Any questions on any of that? All right, Joe.
Okay, thanks for that, Greg. I appreciate that. My last item is it's election day, sort of, kind of, nomination day, I guess you could say. And let me tell you, the people who are running that we have, the board has looked at, pretty much staying the same, except for a couple changes here. Member at large will be Greg Ella. Public Affairs Officer, or PAO, will be Dave Winnett. James has accepted the technical chair. Station trustee will be Wayne Hall. Darren has accepted the treasurer's. Steve Jackson is pulling away from this. He's tied up with other things, so he is not going to be the secretary. But we have another name here, and I don't know if you remember Tony. Tony is Darren's son. He's accepted the nomination for the secretary. Jim Lacey is vice president, and me as president. Is there anybody else that wants to run? Crickets, crickets. That's the way it kind of goes. And I see, and Mike is nodding, no, not me. So anyway, if
Maybe
that's
we need to nominate Mike for something and scare him good.
Oh, Mike, you've been a help. I'd like to thank Steve for doing what he did. He did a great job. He jumped in the worst possible time when somebody actually quit and kind of left us hanging. And so thank you very much, Steve, for doing that. Okay. Any questions or comments about anything, please call.
LCK.
Yes, sir, LCK.
I was just wondering if I might get an opportunity to sell some gear.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I'm Mike, KE0LCK, the other Mike from Windsor, and I have some items for sale. I've been trying to get them out on the club meetings, but this is a good opportunity because you're all here right now. So the first item for sale is a Yaesu 817ND. It has the WinCamp 3200 milliamp hour battery. It has the Anderson power pole connectors already set up on it. Along with that, if you don't like 5 watts, there is a HF amplifier that puts out 45 watts that hooks up with different cabling to the power and the radio. And finally is an MFJ model 971 tuner. It's the manual tuner. It doesn't require any power for it to work. I have an exact duplicate of these 3 items, and I'm looking to part with these with the cabling and what have you. It's a $840 value, and I'm trying to get 6 1/4 out of it. So now that these checks are coming out to everybody, hopefully, you'll have enough to say, oh, what should I buy now? Well, here you go. Thank you, Joe.
You bet. Any questions for Mike? Before we move on to our presentation, does anybody else have any questions or comments?
Yeah, this is Paul. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, fine, Paul.
Hi, guys. It's Paul N0T. I just wanted to give you a little heads up. Bill, WT0DX, and myself, we like to operate 6 meters and a bunch of other stuff, but we're doing a 6 meter group IO, or a group that just does 6 meters, and we've been having a lot of fun with it. And we just started up a couple of weeks ago. Now we got like about 80 members now on this thing. And it's the Front Range. It's called the Front Range 6 meter group IO. The 6 is just the number 6, so it's all one word. And if you guys want to join, we had more than just an email reflector. It going to be doing some a little bit of have some talks about meteor scatter, how to get on it, what to do with FTA on 6 meters, more about propagation, when things are opening up and when the band's open and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of data there, and a lot of very smart guys are on this thing as well. So you're more than welcome to join. And again, it covers most of the Front Range, all the way from the state line all the way down to Trinidad. So anyways, that's the information. Any questions on that?
Hey, Paul, could you do some sort of a write-up, or do you have a write-up? We could actually post it on our website if you'd like to.
Yeah, I just sent somebody over to Daryl this morning with some information how to sign up on a Darren rather. Have you got that okay?
I do have it, and as long as you don't mind a little bit of editing and massaging, I'll put that up on the website.
Please edit away. Thank you.
He hates people that doesn't spell right. I know, he edits me all the time. It's terrible.
No, I just delete.
And you have done that. Any other comments, questions? I do appreciate, I'd like to say one thing before we go to our, I'd like to thank everybody who, Greg and all the rest of these guys that did the net, our weekly net. I had some surgery done, and then of course I was helping out with this and that, and things are just, everybody jumped in and did the net. I do thank them so much for doing this. I just, but I'm going to be back this Thursday, or this Wednesday, I guess it is, and hopefully we'll do this. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Jim, wherever your Jim is. I can't see him on my screen. For Nano VNA.
All right, give me 1 second, and I'm going to start the recording. All right, we are recording. Go ahead, Jim.
I get my screens squared away here.
I thank you, Jim, for doing this. I asked Jim to do this a couple months ago, and he came up with his program. Now I actually think when we get done with this thing, I'll be able to take it out of the box and probably put it back in later.
Okay, everyone able to see the screen now?
Good to go. Good to go.
Okay. Yeah, Joe had asked me a while ago to do this, and it just happened when he asked me, I already had a Nano VNA on order. Not claiming to be an expert on it, but I did order one and did a lot of playing around with it and put together the presentation for it with the basics on what majority of amateur radio operators would use it for. So it's geared more towards the beginner, someone that's never used one and wants a piece of equipment that is fairly inexpensive that does a lot of stuff. Some of the basic functions are you can test the SWR, return loss, and dBs on your coax, your line loss, length of coax, resonant frequency range of the antenna and coax impedance. Most common thing people will be using it for are going to be the SWR. I mean, for $50 to have something that you can test SWR anywhere from HF, VHF, UHF, all the way up into the 23 centimeter and 33 centimeter bands is unheard of. I mean, for anything else, you're going to be spending $500 or more. I know I have one antenna analyzer that was $400 from Comet that only does HF, VHF, and UHF, and it's not exactly the best piece of equipment, but it does the job. When you first get the Nano VNA and use it, you're going to want, every time you use it, you're going to have to calibrate it. So one of the first things was step-by-step on calibrating it. Majority of them will come with the standards for calibrating the Nano VNA. I recommend getting ones outside of the ones that come with it. Out of 3 different Nano VNAs that I got, the supplied standards ranged anywhere from, the load standard ranged anywhere from 44.6 ohms to 57.3 ohms. And as you know, with amateur radio, everything, you want it calibrated at 50 ohm resistance. So that's one thing to considering. It will work, if you will be able to get fairly close readings. It won't be exact. First step in calibrating the Nano VNA, after you power it on, and if you tap up towards the upper right portion of the screen, it'll bring up the menu, the display marker, stimulus, calibration. Tap on the calibrate, or cal, C-A-L, and that'll bring up the sub menu to where you'll see the calibrate menu item. For majority of the testing and use of the Nano VNA, you're only going to use 3 of the 5 calibration modes or methods. First, you will be, first one in the list is the open standard, which is just you calibrate it to open. There is no connection to anything, no antenna. Next will be the short, which is where the 50 ohm standard comes into play. It calibrates it to 50 ohm resistance. Then you have short is, it shorts the, I'm sorry, I screwed up there, but the short is shorts the outer shield of the coax to the center feed line of the coax. The load is the 50 ohm resistance. I forgot my radio was on. This is where the supplied standards aren't exactly the best. The short and the open are obviously, there's nothing that can be wrong with them. It's either shorted or it's open. After you do the load test, you can press the done button located at the bottom of the list. As you go through calibrating each section, it will highlight it to show you that that portion of it's done. The through calibration, and that is not necessary for testing SWR and everything else. Those go more into play when you can test different pieces of equipment. You can frequency. Now I'm drawing a blank on everything, but you can do a lot more with it. When you for testing SWR, when you first turn it on, you're going to have 5 different traces on the Nano VNA, and with a small 2.5-inch screen, it is very busy and hard to read. I suggest going through and disabling all but one of the markers for what you want to test, unless if you want to test 2 things, leave 2 markers on. But to test SWR, you power the Nano VNA on and calibrate it if it's not done already. Then you go through and set the start and stop frequency for the band or section of the band you want to test. Do that, you press the upper right corner, will bring up the menu, press the stimulus to set the start and stop frequencies. You can enter the frequency in either kilohertz, megahertz, or gigahertz. The nano VNA I got goes from 1 kilo 50 kilohertz all the way up to 1.5 gigahertz. After you set the start and stop frequency, you connect it to the antenna, or you can connect it prior to setting it, but make sure the antenna is connected to the channel 0 portion of the nano VNA. Once the antenna is connected to the connection is tightened properly and secure. There's the proper way to do it is use a torque wrench. A lot of people will be able to do it without using a torque wrench. It requires the proper torque for majority SMA connectors is 5 inch-pounds of torque. It's hard to achieve just with trying to go finger tight unless you have something attached to it to give you a little bit more leverage. Even though it's only 5 inch-pounds, something that small is a little bit harder to get accurate. Select the format you want to test, such as SWR, under the format label. Again, that is going to be in the menu on the right-hand side. After you do that, you can tap anywhere on the screen and it'll be displayed on the screen. You can drag the marker. Stylus is very handy for that because the screen is so small. If you use your finger, it tends to jump around a lot. Use a stylus, you can drag the marker back and forth and it'll display what frequency the marker is at and show you the SWR or the log mag or Smith chart, depending on which you have up for testing. I found it a lot easier to connect it to a tablet or a PC. You get a lot more information and a lot more functionality out of the nano VNA. I use it with a small 10-inch Windows tablet. It makes it a lot easier to read and understand. If you use the nano VNA on its own without being connected to an external device, the internal battery will last 2 to 3 hours, which is plenty of battery life for testing antennas out in the field. It's not something that's going to be turned on and left on for hours on end. It's turn it on and generally have it on for 10-15 minutes and you're done with your testing. If you do connect it to a tablet or PC or laptop or anything, it will draw its power through the USB connection. So you won't use any of the internal battery. It'll actually charge the battery for you while you have it connected, which is a nice feature. When you look at the different pictures displayed, there's 2 different programs that I found. One is the Nano VNA Saver and the other one is the Nano VNA Smart. My personal preference is the Nano VNA Saver just because to me it's a lot cleaner display and shows a lot more information without having to switch between displays or changing any of the settings. But again, that's up to you what your personal preference is. Mine is the Nano VNA Saver. The Nano VNA Saver is an open source Python program that's available for download at GitHub or a few other places. And there's some links there. I believe Darren put these slides up on the website also, so you can get it and get to the links. There's additional resources. It's also available for Windows, Linux-based devices. It's a Python script, so it's pretty universal. If you can program, you can pretty much put it on any device you want. When you're testing a dual band antenna, this is one example that I had where this is testing my Diamond X200 for my dual band on my base radio. there's 101 points on the Nano VNA that it marks a reading. If you look at the picture with the 101 points, testing 140 megahertz through 450 megahertz to get both the 2 meter and 440 in there for the dual band, everything is scattered all over the place and very hard to read. I mean, you can definitely see the low points and high points in it, which gives you a reference, but beyond that, it doesn't give you too much of accurate information. One thing I do, once you get your low points, reduce it to test a single band. This one you can see I changed the sweep from up to 144 megahertz through 149 megahertz to cover the 2 meter band. How much cleaner the lines are and drawing is and everything. And then you can see the low point. The VSWR is 1.2 to 1 SWR at 145.13 megahertz. And all these images are using the Nano VNA Saver on a tablet or PC. Another thing you have also gain with the using an external device such as a tablet or PC is the TDR function, the time domain reflectometer. It'll give you the estimated length of the coax you are testing, along with being able to test for the impedance and everything else in the coax. It gives you the approximate length. As you can see from this one, the coax that feeds my HF antenna is the RG8X or the LMR240. It estimated the length at 77 feet, 8.7 inches. The physical measurement of that coax is 77 feet, 10.5 inches. So it's very accurate on testing the length of the coax. I did it both with 3 separate pieces of coax, and all were within 0.5% variation. And so will give you a very good description and estimate on the length of the coax you're testing. This is just additional resources you can use. The coax loss calculator, Nano VNA Saver download, Linux platform help, Nano VNA Smart. There are quite a few videos that go into more in-depth and more technical aspects of the Nano VNA. Like I said at the beginning, I just wanted something for basic use, which is what a lot of people will be using it for majority of the time. You can get into testing filters and roofing filters and bandpass filters and everything else with it, which is a lot more technical and something that'll be covered in a future one. And that as far when you start getting into testing filters and everything else, that would just testing a low bandpass filter could be an entire presentation. I mean, it's a lot more in depth. The Nano VNA is very useful and very inexpensive. Average price between $45 up to $150, depending on the version that you get. The one I got was it was $78 just because I wanted the extra bandwidth on it that goes up to the 1.5 gigahertz versus the 900 megahertz version. That was the end of it. Any questions, comments?
Yeah,
I
this
got a
is Mark.
question for you.
I had one question.
Okay.
How fast is the retrace rate on this? I know, like for filters and some different things, you need the sweep rate to be fairly fast if you're doing something. Does this take a while to do the initial sweep, or is it real time enough that if you were doing a filter, that you could make an adjustment and see the results real time?
Everything that I have done with it, it is near real time. I mean, it's whenever, if you're doing it in a, obviously the longer the sweep that you're doing, like with the sweep for the 2 meter all the way through 440, so 140 megahertz up through 450 megahertz, took a couple seconds to do that entire sweep. Whenever you do a sweep, say for just the 2 meter band or a single HF band, to where you're only talking about maybe 1 megahertz or even 500 kilohertz, it's near instant.
Okay, yeah, because I know the couple that I've used that were a little more expensive, you know, they're make it difficult to tune a filter because it's not as much real time. So it's good to hear that this is a little quicker if you've got a smaller span. Thank you.
Okay.
Jim, do you have any experience with the F version at all?
I don't. I was actually going to buy one just to see if there is a difference. Everything I've read and seen about them, the big difference between the standard, which is, I think it's the N version or K version or whatever it is, and the F version is the bigger screen.
Yeah.
That's it. As far as the circuit board and the PCB and everything else, it's the same. They just put a bigger screen on it.
What about the switch versus the knob? I've heard that there's a version 3.1 hardware that uses little switches that make it work a little better when you're trying to manually change the frequency or whatever.
Yeah, I mean that's the knob or little knob wheel thing that's on the top of it. I tried using it a couple times and it's a pain. It's easier just to tap the screen and enter the frequencies that you want to use versus using the wheel. I mean, that's why I always have on my desk and in the case is a little stylus that makes it real easy to use. And you can even get a pen that has the stylus on the end of it where you just flip your pen over and you can use that. Makes it a lot easier than trying to use the wheel or even the switches.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jim.
LCK.
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, Jim, a couple questions. You say it's on the website or will be on the website, the presentation?
Darren?
Presentation is already on the website under the resources tab.
Okay. It was hard to see the one slide with the background that it had, but did you indicate where the calibration standards could be obtained?
You can get them on Amazon. You can buy them when you buy the Nano VNA. Every place that I've seen that sells the Nano VNA also sells additional standards. For example, the one that on the slide that's up right now, I made all these calibration standards myself with just the SMA connectors and the PCB board. And when I made mine, obviously the open and short are easy. You just leave it open or short the inner and outer part of the coax. And the 50 ohm load standard, I use 200 ohm resistors in parallel, which gives you the 50 ohm. If you do that, and I think I spent for all the parts and everything less than $5. And to buy a decent set of standards, you're looking at any $10, $15, $20 or more.
Okay.
And so if you have resistors or know someone that has some resistors, they can make you a fairly accurate standard. Mine, with the 200 ohm resistors I have, when I tested it with other equipment, it came out at 49.8 ohms, which is as close to 50 ohm as you're going to get without surface mount components.
You've also got the tolerance of those parts too.
Yeah.
Higher tolerance resistors, you're going to have a better result at the end.
Yeah.
And the cable that you use to go to the tablet, it's USB to SMA?
Yeah, it's USB-C to go to the tablet. It has a USB-C to USB, so you have to have a USB port to plug it into your tablet. Let me see.
This is Durbin. I have a couple of questions. One is whether you compared the accuracy of your measurements over frequency with some other instrument.
Yes, I tested it again when I was doing the testing and everything with it. I tested against a standard antenna analyzer and a now I'm drawing a blank again, but I tested against
spectrum analyzer, or
yeah, the not Rig Blaster, but the
Rig Expert.
Yeah, Rig Expert. There we go. Couldn't think of the expert part. I tested it against both of those, and it was within 0.5% variation.
Dang.
This is N0TZU with a comment.
Yeah.
So I have the F version, and I can talk about that briefly if that's all right.
Yeah, definitely.
So the F version is about $110 or so if you buy it directly from the guy who made it, who developed it, and it's his website. Actually, it's not a website. He's on AliExpress. Deep Elec, DEPELEC is the name. I find it to be very useful with the larger screen because it makes it a lot easier to use, and I use it standalone quite a bit actually, and only hook it up to the computer once in a while depending on what I'm doing. And for going outside and or portable use around the shack or whatever, it's really nice having a larger screen. It is slightly different than the other versions. The processor is a little different. It's a different part number, and I don't think you can load the code for the H version or the smaller versions directly onto the F. However, the developer does have code that's pretty well up to date with the other versions, but because there's a smaller user base at present, that tends to lag slightly. But otherwise, it's very capable. I mean, the basic, all the rest of the circuitry is essentially the same. One other thing I might mention is that the direct measurement capability using the fundamental of the output signal only goes up to about 300 megahertz. Above that, you're using a harmonic. The instrument uses a harmonic of the signal. So the accuracy in the dynamic range starts to fall off above about 300 megahertz. I haven't tried to really do too much with it above about 70 centimeters, so I can't address that from my experience, but certainly up through 70 centimeters, it's fine for any ham use. I think if you get up towards the 1 gigahertz or now I think, let's see, on the F version, I know they're up to 1.5 gigahertz. I think the dynamic range continues to fall off. I don't believe they've really changed the internal circuitry that much, if at all. I think it might be just mostly software changes. So that's all I had to say. Thanks.
Yeah,
I got something to throw out there.
Hey, Jim, I got. Oh, go ahead.
If you guys have 3D printers, there's a lot of cool little cases that can be made from openware, free stuff. On this one's got a little thing you can put adapters in, but yeah, there's a lot of different 3D printed designs for cases because the sides on these are open if you have one, and this also protects that wheel pretty good too.
Hey, Jim, I've got a question.
Yeah.
You're using your own little calibration block. Don't you like the ones that came with it?
No, they work fine for majority of the stuff. Like I say, the calibration standards that came with it are just little Basically, they took the end of the SMA, and
Yeah.
that's all it is.
Yeah, I'm well aware. I've got it.
Yeah, I mean, I made this one and used my 3D printer to make the case that it's in that has everything labeled on it, which is a lot easier, and I'm not going to lose it. And it's the load portion is a lot more accurate. Like I say, it's the ones I tested were between the load was between 44 ohm up to 57 ohm on the 3 different sets that I tested. After that, I wanted something that was more accurate. I mean, going from 44 ohm to 50 ohm, you're not going to have much variation. I mean, it's close. I just wanted something a little bit more accurate.
Understandable. By the way, I want to mention one thing for the people who don't know what this thing is and think that they're going to buy it with an instruction manual. I don't know if you can see this. Let me knock off the background here. But this is all it comes with.
Yeah.
And you're lucky you're going to get this. This is nothing more than a menu tracer, if you will, or structure, and that's it. So I'll let you go on with that. They're an excellent tool for the price. You have to admit that.
Question?
Yeah, they really are. I've been impressed. You do have to spend some time going through and looking at some of the user groups if you're not familiar with how a VNA works. And you might actually spend some time reading up just on VNAs in general. But if you're familiar with how they work, then it's really quite an interesting tool. I just wanted to note, this is, I don't know if you can see this. This is the F version. And one of the other things you get besides the big screen for the extra money, the $110, is you do get a nice metal case with this, which I really like, because you get out in the yard with the antenna, and you don't really have to worry about getting dirt inside of it or ordering a separate case.
Yeah, well, it's some of the newer ones, like this one, just the regular, the VNA H they're starting to put them in plastic cases. I know some of the earlier ones just have a top layer and a bottom layer with an open PCB in the middle with no protection at all, where a lot of the newer ones do come with in a case, and this one's just the ABS plastic. It's not metal, but it's definite improvement from the old ones.
Oh, that's good. One other thing I wanted to mention, and this applies to all of them, is, these SMA connectors are not really designed for a lot of mates and unmate cycles. So what I've done is I've gotten some of these male to female adapters and put them on, so that's oops, just dropped it on the floor. But anyway, that's what actually takes most of the wear now. And these are easily replaceable. And if you get them from a relatively cheap source like AliExpress or something, some offshore manufacturing, they're very inexpensive. So I would highly recommend considering that, or considering using some short cables that you can also replace for very little money, and save the wear and tear on the connectors of the unit itself.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely put something on. Like I say, and I have 2 of them now, one that I use and one that's in a box, just because when I was doing the testing, I wanted to get 2 of them just to for the accuracy between them, to see if they were all close or the same. That's something I always do, buy multiple if I'm testing something, just to see if there's any variation between them. The one that I use all the time has the SMA standards, or not standards, but the connectors on it, just so I can, once I do use that for a while, I can take it off, put a new one on, and it's not damaging the one that's attached to the PCB board.
Question?
Yeah.
I noticed you were talking about putting it or connecting it to a computer. Do they make any iPad type interface?
iPad specific, I am not. I know people have done it. A lot of time you can, on the slide that's up right now, the bottom link, the groups.io for nano VNA users, they have a lot of information on there. That is one place I would definitely recommend going. Someone on there has done it and can give you a lot better insight on how they did it versus me.
Thanks.
Did you want to comment about knockoffs and where to buy these?
Yeah, as far as where to buy them, I'm not gonna. There's 1,000 different places. The guy that originally designed it did everything open source and free. Just about every company out there has made their own version of it. I would definitely recommend. Some of them you see that are $35, $40. I would stay away from. Those are the cheaper ones. To buy one, I would plan on spending at $55 and up, just because those are going to be the ones that are higher quality in general. And read the reviews from the company you buy it from. That's about the best information I can give as far as where to buy them. Is just research who you're buying it from, just because there are thousands of knockoffs out there. I know one thing I have seen, that the ones that have in the white case with the gecko on it, everyone I have talked to, with the exception of 2 people out of about 20, say stay away from those ones.
It's Phil Burke. I have a question.
Yeah.
Does it have a way of storing the information so that you can use it in the field and then take it back to the computer and view what you just did?
No. The only things that it will store are you can calibrate it for a frequency range and save that calibration. As far as accuracy of it being, the calibration being saved is negligible. It does work if you save it for a day. If you pick it up a day later, I would recalibrate it, even though you have it saved. Single day use, I would. Is storing the information, it doesn't store anything.
Okay. I purchased one through Amazon, $114. Just received it the other day, turned it on, and of course, nothing would happen on the touchscreen. I tried and tried and tried. And it turns out that when they put the case on there, it was pushing on the touchscreen all the time. So if I flexed it just right, then it would work. So I'm going to take that case off and make sure it doesn't have something underneath the edge pushing on the screen. So if you receive one like that, be aware of that. That if you're not getting any response off that touchscreen, then it's good to just flex it and see if what's going on. And it could be just something under the edge of the case that's pushing on that screen.
Yeah, I've even talked to a few people that the issue came down to whenever they're assembled, they have the plastic film over the screen and assemble it and then peel the plastic film off. And that plastic film gets stuck underneath it, and it's just enough to where it puts just enough pressure on that portion of the screen to where it won't work.
Right. Thanks.
Yep. Any other questions?
Just to note with that last question is, it's very rudimentary, but you can take a trace and stop the tracing, the sweep. So once you stop the sweep, it'll retain that on the screen. I've used that to do something outside and then come back inside and look at it but I haven't tried to download that directly to the computer, so I'm not sure you can do that without causing it to start another sweep. But that's about the only thing you can do. But it is useful, at least in a very limited way.
Yeah, and if you sweep it and then leave it powered on without touching anything else, or stop the sweep. But as far as saving, I haven't found any way to save it or transfer it once it's done.
Right. Yeah. There's no data memory.
Yeah.
One more quick thing here, Jim. Phil Burke.
Yeah.
When you mentioned putting together your little decade box there for calibration, it's good to note, some people don't know this, but you need to use precision carbon resistors. You don't want to get anything that's wire wound because you're just adding inductance. So be sure to look for good precision carbon resistors if you're going to make your own decade.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely good resistors. I mean, the best ones are the surface mount resistors, if you have them or find them anywhere without having to buy 1,000 at once. Their surface mount's definitely the way to go if you can.
Any other questions?
Joe?
No, that's what I was saying. Any other questions for Jim?
And if you have any questions, you can find me on the radio or ask on the TechNet. I know now that we did the presentation, working on actually doing some videos for the YouTube channel to go through different step-by-step processes with it. Probably do a series of 5 to 10 minute videos for individual processes. So it'll be a little bit easier to watch than a half-hour video going through 3 things. It'll be a specific step-by-step process.
Well, thank you very much, Jim, for doing that. Just a couple more announcements, just to remind you what we talked about earlier. We're thinking about putting together a online or not a teleconferencing type tech class. Please send me a note, or if you have someone else that was interested in this, spouse or whatever, friends, just send me a note at president@ncarc.net. Also, just a reminder, at 1:30 this afternoon, we're going to do the second half of the Skywarn stuff. This is the local stuff, okay? That's a lot of questions come out. Well, I went to the one, do I have to go to the other? Well, if you're going to work in this area, it wouldn't be a bad idea if you do go. And Mike is putting that on at 1:30. And if you don't have that note, send a note to either Darren or myself, and we'll send you that note to get on. Any other questions?
A couple of comments. I recorded the presentation here, so I will get that a link to it posted up on the website next to the slides themselves.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, and I guess you can go get some ice cream. No, wait a minute. We're not in the place, are we? We're not there.
Just a further comment. We've also, this whole meeting has been recorded and is on the YouTube page. That's at youtube.com/NCARC.
Mike, was that you?
Yes, sir. You got the new slate of officers. When's the election actually going to be?
Well, at the end of this meeting, it's over, and then we will elect them next month. But it's then nobody to elect. Nobody's running against us.
Nominations happen this month, and the election is next month. And since there's only one name, we kind of know who's going to win.
Okay, thank you.
Needless to say, there won't be a written type election because there's no write-ins. Any other questions?
I have a general question. I've used Zoom quite a bit at work, and today I've had it crash a couple of times. Has anybody else had Zoom crash?
Darren, you've had more experience than anybody who has with this.
It's been solid for me. I've actually never had it crash on me.
Okay, it might be this computer then. Thank you.
You're welcome. And this is probably more than I've ever had. I think I saw us at a peak of 65 participants.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, I think I've only been on stuff that had half this many, so that's why I wondered if anybody else had the problem. But thanks for doing this via Zoom. It was great.
Well, we'll probably be doing it next month the same way.
Yeah, thank you. It's been great.
AB4TC. I had one crash. Came right back.
Yeah, it restarted itself, but I was surprised that it crashed.
Well, I even went out and came back in once, and of course then it dropped one time, which I stupid. But came back in the second time, it was fine.
Now, what do you mean it dropped?
Well, I got myself involved in something online, and it just stopped. I couldn't get back in, so I actually reinitiated the session, and it was fine.
Okay.
I would just add to that. My broadband connection down here is modest on the best of days, and I occasionally get a message that says your internet connection is poor, and I get freezes, and I get the kind of get distortion in the audio, but it's never dropped outright. I think a lot of problems that you may encounter with Zoom could be related to your broadband connection.
Okay.
I was just thinking the same thing. And I use it on my iPad, and it works really, really well. So if you consider that, if you have an iPad, then you may want to give that a go too.
The other thing, even though we are a radio club, I would say to people, a good percentage of your connectivity issues can come from Wi-Fi for a variety of reasons. If you have an Ethernet connection available to your device, jack into your router directly. You can't be a wired connection with a signal of this width.
I'd have to agree with that. That's what I've got on both my computers here that I run Zoom over.
That's a good point. The computer I usually use for Zoom is hardwired, and I'm using a laptop this morning that's not. So that's a good point.
Could be. Mine was operator error though. So it definitely was me that did it. It didn't drop on purpose. I made it drop.
The only thing to watch out for is to make sure you're not swapping between different video chat software. So like if you run Skype and then you try to run something else, sometimes you'll have problems.
Oh, I imagine. Yeah. I never thought about that, but you're right. Yeah. No, I was just pulling up a list of people.
Right, and if you know anything about networking, you can go into your router and set up quality of service to whichever device you're going to use, and it'll give that priority. So if you try that and it improves, then you've definitely got a connectivity issue.
Okay.
Well, myself personally, I have never had any trouble with Zoom. I've been on 2 or 3 of the general classes. I actually taught one of them, and nothing. It was fine. Like I said, my problem today was I got involved in too many things and closed one. Any other comments, questions?
Just thank you for doing this.
Oh, no problem. That's what we're hoping to move toward that even with live meetings, where somebody can monitor your questions and then ask somebody if we need be.
Yeah, great idea.
Well, I think we need to do that. The guys and I have been working very hard trying to do things for you and everything else. And always remember, if you've got an idea, let us know. Well,
I have found that the coffee at this meeting is much better.
Well, Mike said the service was just as good.
I think Tony's looking for his ice cream.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. He looks a little parched, don't you think? Okay, well, thank you, and good night.
Thanks, bye.
Take care. Nice job, Darren. Nice job.
This presentation was brought to you by the Northern Colorado Amateur Radio Club. For more information, visit our website, ncarc.net. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.